Hey everyone, it's Greg. It's about 10:40 at night here, Tuesday. If you hear a squeaker, it's my dog. I just got home. He's pretty excited to see me. I had a little bit of a long day today, but that's all right. I realized after someone commented on the video that I posted earlier that the audio didn't work for this, for Dice Throne Talk number 4. So we're going to redo it here, and I'm not going to take anything out of it from the first time, so don't think you missed anything from me doing this again. I'm still going to provide to you the same contact or same content because it was no one's fault but mine for double checking the microphone was working. So here we are. So what we're going to talk about is actually a few different things. Just the rule book for actually Dice Throne itself, foreshadowing and how it has foreshadowed already through the lore, and other stuff that I have purchased for the Kickstarter. So the first thing I want to go through first before I get into what we purchased for the Kickstarter is Michaela and I are looking into microphones and a little bit better microphones so that the audio quality is a lot better. You can hear us better and more clarity. So if you have an idea or a recommendation of what microphone we should get, please let us know in the comments below of what you would recommend, and or anything that we need to look out for, stay away from, or need to make sure that we have. That would be great, as this would definitely be new to us, and we need to do some research of what would be the best quality for a reasonable price. Obviously, we're not going to go anything crazy for price, but if it's reasonable, we will probably get it in the near future. Near future, I mean possibly the latest would be Christmas time. Earliest would be next week. So we'll see how far we go. But if you have any recommendations, please let me know below. So something that Michaela and I discussed as well is what we want to produce for Dice Throne and Dice Throne Adventures when we finally get the Kickstarter. And I really want to provide the best quality and the best product I can to really represent Dice Throne in its entirety. And in order to do that, I've decided that I'd really like to get the miniatures for it, and made sure I have the card sleeves for them as well, and anything else. So what I did was I emailed Roxy Kickstarter and messaged them and asked, hey, if it's okay, is it alright if I upgrade my pledge into getting the miniatures and making sure I had the card sleeves. And it turned out that we did purchase the card sleeves already. I thought before in a previous video that I did not, but apparently I did when I actually looked into it a little bit more. And buying the, oops, we already have it open here, don't we, I believe. So yeah, it's right here. So we actually got a few different things by adding more into it. The person that emailed us back, Aaron, said that, well, for what you're getting, you might as well upgrade into the Epic Collector, which provides the painted minis, the Dice Throne tray, and a playmat. So that's what we're getting. We're going to get the dice tray. That way we can roll the awesome dice on an awesome dice tray and show off that logo. The next thing that we did get was the Minimalist Play Mat. I talked to Michaela about which playmat we wanted to get, and she didn't want to get a single character playmat, which I totally understand and respect. So our choices were the Minimalist, Season 1, which I actually love probably the most, and then we have Season 2, which is also fantastic. And then we had Dice Throne Adventures, which has the 3 Fallen Warriors with the Shadow Thief, Gunslinger, and Samurai. So this was something that Michaela really liked as well. But at the end of the day, we decided to go for the Minimalist. as it's not really producing any main character, and it's just supporting Dice Throne in general. And I really like that emblem overall. I love it, and so we're going to stick with that one. And if I didn't say it already, we are getting the painted S1, Season 1, and Season 2 miniatures, which I'm really excited about. These aren't the final renditions. I'm sure there's possibly some differences between this from the initial Kickstarter and now. They did post on a update not too long ago. We can go check that out real quick. Latest on manufacturing, pictures of minis, and more. So there's the development. A lot of people got upset. I didn't have this when I posted the update on the update on the update. And if you notice here, it's October 15th. There was a lot of surprise in that, and I guess there's a miscommunication of putting that in the update. There was no ill intent on not saying anything about that, and they apologized. And hey, it is what it is. When it's done producing, it's done producing. With everything going on in the world right now, main thing COVID, you can't really get a hard pinpoint of when they expect stuff to come in or be produced. So just be patient on it. When it gets here, it will get here. These are the miniatures. Not a huge close-up on them, but it shows them in the entirety. It looks fantastic. I've never painted miniatures before, so to have them pre-painted is very nice to have. That way I don't mess those up at all, but you can get them. And then obviously there's the podcast that AJ allowed me on. A lot of fun. And make sure to check out his stuff that he keeps on producing. So that is it for the Kickstarter that we got. The next thing that I want to talk about is the rulebook. Last time I talked about Dice Throne Adventures rulebook and just touched on a few things. Didn't go in great depth, but just want to touch on a little bit. For Dice Throne Adventure or Dice Throne itself, that's the same thing I want to do because something that I did not realize is that I did not have the most up-to-date version. As you can see right here, the rulebook is a living document, meaning that it can keep on updating at any time as it needs. And you get the latest version at the rules.dicethrone.com, which will bring you to this page. This version is 2.2, which is the latest version overall. Really awesome overall. You have the Ninja in there, the Trent, some Season 1, Season 2s. Well, actually, it's just Season 1 in there, isn't it? Yep, it's just Season 1 in there, no Season 2, which is perfectly fine. So we'll go into this a little bit. This is probably one of my more favorite instruction manuals of how to play a game. It's very clear, color-coded, walk you through different steps, phases, color-coded, which is fantastic. It makes it so easy to teach new people to go about the cards, to go, well, if it's an orange card, you can play it during these phases. If it's a blue card, you can play it during these phases. If it's a white card, that's also during the blue phases or main phases. And if it's a red card, you can play it anytime. So, and then you also have the turn order phase cards to help them out as well. So we'll kind of go through here a little bit. One of the things that they did update was the combat points icon, you could say. It says CP with a triangle, and that's just going to coincide with Dice Throne Adventures rulebook and just making it the same on that. As your turn phases there, tells you different activation requirements to do it, defensive abilities, passive abilities, and your ultimates. Key note here, the damage and effects on ultimate can be enhanced but cannot be reduced, prevented, avoided, responded to, or interrupted by anything, and they bold that, anything. Once that attack has been locked in, you as the opponent cannot do anything until after the fact, until it's all done and said. So you take all damage, status effects, everything. The only way to prevent an ultimate ability is to alter a dice roll before the activation. Not during. Before. No defensive abilities at all. It tells you about the hero leaflet, which is really nice to have as well. And talks about the different dice keys, complexity ratings. Value between 1 and 6 measures how difficult a hero is to play. Higher complexity heroes often take more time to master and require good strategy to play effectively. So it's not the matter of you being able to play the character, it's just how well can you effectively play it. So something like the Artificer is not someone I would want to play, or even the Cursed Pirate, for someone that's brand new to the game. I would want to look for a complexity rating of 1 or 2, such as like a Barbarian, Samurai, Moon Elf, and Gunslinger is what I would be looking for first for the first time players. Status effects, stack limits, unique status effects. Very important to know about the difference between a unique status effect and just a regular status effect for Dice Throne Adventures, of what can and cannot be taken off, or such as what status effects, what have you. Companions. This is very important to know as well. Companions can't be what status affected as well, can't be abide. Once those companions are on the board, they stay on the board. Nothing can happen to them. Talks about the hero cards. Sorry about the highlighting there. Hero upgrades, how to upgrade. So the biggest thing about the upgrade cards is that if you have a level 2 upgrade, which is cost you, let's say, 1 CP, and then you have a level 3 upgrade of the same attack, but it's 3 CP, if you put the level 2 first, you just pay 1 CP for it. And then when you're ready to play the level 3, you only pay 2 CP. You only play the difference. You don't play the full amount if you already upgraded it once. So just remind yourself of that it's not the full amount. You only pay the difference. Action cards. The biggest thing there is you can play at any time. They're not interrupted. Interrupted mean that they have to go through. Nothing can prevent it from happening. You may have 2 instances happening at the same time. So you may have someone that says, getting paid, gain 2 CP, and then someone, the opponent, may play another instant action card, say any other instant action card. I can't think of one right now, I'm sorry. The getting paid goes through, and then the following instant action goes through. Goes through one at a time. Roll phase action cards. So the big thing about this one, so we just finished playing Vampire Lord versus the Artificer. And during that play, I had a try again, and I played it, and on the first roll, I was able to successfully get what I wanted. Now, once I have gotten what I wanted, and I have locked in that attack, the opponent, or at that time my wife, could have played a card to mess with that die, and then I would not have been able to roll again due to the try again. The reason why is because I have used that card fully and done with it, and then would have been able for the opponent to mess with the die at that time. So that's something that Rick May, if you're listening to this, thank you very much for letting me know on that. He said that's something that's been confirmed by Manny and Nate. So just be aware of that as well. Resolving text, let's see. Multiplication and thens. Very important to understand the difference between that. So a multiply would mean that it's how many of these. So let's say bullets. If you roll bullets, you deal 4 damage or 1 damage per each bullet. I'm sorry. But then an on. I talked about then in multiplications, but I'm talking about on now. So you roll on this symbol. No matter how many of that symbol you roll, you only do that effect 1 time. So the example there is it says I believe it's gaze for the vampire lord. It's a 4 or a 5. You draw 1 card. So if you roll 4 of those, you only draw 1 card. But you can see above that it says add 1 damage times the number of claws for damage. So if you roll 4 claws, you deal 4 damage. So that's the difference on those two. So be careful when you're reading the effects. Does it say on or is it a multiplier? So I'm trying to roll up again here. Sometimes my iPad kind of freaks out a little bit on me. Damage types. That chart is fantastic. I am so happy that they had this chart in here. Usually when I play Dice Throne, I just have this chart to automatically, or the instruction manual automatically to this page for the chart. That way if there's any questions, whether or not I can enhance it, or defend it, or it's a voidable, will have you, or special targeting rules, I can look at that right then and there. The big thing is pure damage. As far as I know, that's not something in Season 1 or Season 2 yet. However, in Season 1 Rerolled, that's going to be on a few of the characters. So just be aware of that and look out for that when you're breaking out those new character boards. You have attack modifiers. So any sort of modifier, such as the example there, eat lead, you can use that after the opponent spends or uses their defensive roll. So let's say you attack and it's a defendable roll, what have you, and you have this card in your hand and you want to play it, but maybe it's against the Moon Elf or someone else that can avoid the attack through the defensive roll or protect, what have you. You can have them roll the defensive roll first and then add on any enhanceable effects. So as you can tell right there, the normal damage, it's enhanceable, and you can wait until after the defensive roll. It says right there they can be played before or after the defensive ability is activated. So, and it's added on to the original damage. You have different player modes. If you're interested, you can go to the variantsdicethrone.com. So you can check that out if you like to. This is something. So you have your turn breakdown right there. Really nice. Probably the most important thing is the upkeep phase and the income phase. Upkeep phase is first, meaning that if you have any status effects or abilities, such as passive abilities, such as the Artificer, such as, I'm trying to think of another one, Gunslinger with the reload. Upkeep phase, they gain the reload or the synth first before the income phase. If you have any bleeds, nanites, anything that happens during the upkeep phase, you roll that, you take care of those effects first, and then you do the income phase, meaning you gain your CP by 1 and you draw 1. And then you go into your main phase. So just be mindful of that. I know that we may have forgotten that once or twice in our games, and now we're more conscious of this. The biggest thing here, I actually looked into my rule book for Season 2 and looked into this. This is not in there for what I have personally, and it's a final damage total. And there's a big old warning in the top left hand of the box there. It says, this section is intended for advanced players in tournament play. The following knowledge is not required to play the game casually. So if you're going to tournaments or you're going in for competitive play, what have you, you need to be aware of these rules, which is something that Mikhail and I are going to be trying to be aware of and play more often, just to add that more competitive to it. So final total damage, which is the amount you reduce your health dial by at the conclusion of the roll phase, can be complex when the incoming damage of the attack is affected by your defensibility, cards, stats effects, what have you. But they give you an example of what happens between the barbarian and paladin, and then the math behind it and how it's applied. So you first have to determine incoming damage, which can be from offensive, defensive abilities, or such as a burn or a poison. It's all incoming damage. Then you have to add and subtract the subtotals, which is anything that's used to add or subtract based on its title right there. And then finally calculate anything that affects incoming damage using multiplication or division, meaning retributions, protects, anything that may multiply or divide. So add, subtract, multiply, divide, just like your basic math formulas, if you remember that from school. So let's just go through this example here real quick. Below is an example of a series of events during an offensive-defensive roll between a barbarian and the paladin. Barbarian deals 18 damage. The paladin spends his retribution first, but it's going to be applied at the end because it's dealing half of the incoming damage back. Half meaning it's dividing by 2. So even though that's happening first, it's going to happen last. So just be mindful of that. Paladin spends his protect, which is also something that's coming in at the end because it's having it. So it's going to prevent half of it. Paladin then activates his defensive roll, which is going to prevent 3 damage, and then gains another protect. So if he did not spend that, so he needed to spend that protect first before he gained another one because the stack limit is 1. Barbarian plays his modifier to add 5. Paladin plays a card that prevents another 3. And then Paladin spends his other protect, which will prevent half of incoming damage. So once we get into the determining incoming damage, which is 18. That's the initial attack is 18. Now we're going to be subtracting 3 on the defensive roll. So now we're at 15. We're adding 5 for the additional damage. So now we're at 20. And we're minusing another 3 because of the absolution card. So we're doing all the adding and subtracting first, which is now 17. Now we do step 3, which is multiply and divide, which is all division. Retribution happened first, so divide that by 2, which is going to be 9 because we round up. We always round up in dice round. And then we have 2 protects. So 17 divided by 2 is 9. Now, even though we only have 9 coming in, the second protect does not have the 9. It has the 17, which is the subtotal incoming damage. Meaning if you spend 2 protects during the same damage, you will prevent half of it because you're preventing half of the damage both times, which will be 100%. So the paladin would be taking 0 damage, but then also dealing 9 back based on what happened here. And then it also talks about timing conflicts, interruptions. It's just saying, hey, just do it in order. Once one is complete, the next one plays, or the previous order of play continues normally. So that is the rules and then just some quick reference guides as well. If you have any questions of what different definitions may be. So the last thing that I have is a little bit of the foreshadowing. So if you go back into Dice Throne Adventures and you go to the campaign, you'll have the ability to hit comic issue 0 and comic issue number 1. Comic issue number 1 is about the gunslinger, and then comic issue 0 is the very first one. And if you go to it, and if you read it, you may have noticed some prelude and foreshadowing that I caught not then, but now, or shortly before this. And I thought it was very interesting how it was decided that this was going to happen without any knowledge to the public that Dice Throne Adventures was going to happen. Nate and Gavin and Manny have talked about how this is like a 10-part series or 10-year process, what have you, of what their plan is for Dice Throne. And you can see how far they've probably thought of already in terms of, I know they have at least 16 other characters that Nate said that they have in store and still developing or just waiting to put out there. And you have to wonder if there's any other expansions coming out for Adventures, or maybe there's something happening after Adventures. Who knows, other than time. So a few things I thought that were interesting, preluding and foreshadowing for the first part or for this comic. We'll kind of go through it here a little bit and see if, as I go through them, I find them here. So we have Vizier. I would be interested to see if he becomes one of the characters that we have to defeat that's like a playable character or minion, what have you, see if he's interested in into the actual gameplay. Be interesting here. So the first one is named, and then the Mad King says named. They have no name, not until I deem them worthy of a name, which is pretty interesting because if you think about it, the heroes are, the Barbarian, a Moon Elf, Shadow Thief, Pyromancer. They're actually not a person's name necessarily, but just the character themselves of how they identify, but not an actual name. But then you have someone like Vizier who's actually named, or so I'd be interested to see if we do find names for any of these characters, or if that's something later on that they're going to throw out there as like actual names of worthy of opponents. I think that would be really cool and interesting if they do that. So as we continue on here, so it talks about the burden of his kingdom, crown is heavy. Sorry if you hear the squeaking again. Let's see, I'm still going through here. Lay down Grand Championship. So would you hear about those that approach your Grand Championship? Meaning that I'm not even sure if Dice Throne Adventures is really the Grand Championship. It's just an adventure towards the Mad King. And I wonder if there's something beyond that. And as we get into it, when we get to the Pyromancer, I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. So I think their Grand Championship is something to hit on. Another thing, important thing here. So serve me or perish. Proceed, my friend. Let me hear who will be joining the ranks of my fallen. So even from comic book 0, season 1, just trying to kickstart it, what have you, and they're already talking about the fallen, which we're just now learning and about to fight in Dice Throne Adventures. that is really cool, really exciting how much they're looking into it, how much they're foreshadowing into it, which is really exciting to know about as someone who is a fan of Dice Throne, wants to play Dice Throne, and wants to see a future in Dice Throne, that they're planning so far ahead and really writing the lore out and really wanting to produce quality content. It's awesome. So really cool that they mentioned that as well. Get to the Moon Elf, and the Moon Elf is interesting because the Mad King is talking about is it perhaps someone of a different race, because the Moon Elf is a cousin. Bottom right hand corner says, "Let my lunar cousins come." But over on the top left over here, it says, "Is it the Under Elves, Dusk Dancers, the Woodkin, or is it the Moon Elves?" Well, we know that it's the Moon Elf because that's who we have. The Woodkin most likely represents the Trent. It's made out of wood, the Woodkin. So that's probably the Woodkin that he's talking about. Unless there's another elf that are the Woodkin that live in the woods. So either a possibility. The other two, though, we also have not seen without doubt. The Under Elves and the Dusk Dancers. So the Under Elves are probably some sort of shadowy elf, kind of like a shadow thief kind of feel to it. And then the Dusk Dancers as well is probably two characters we will probably see in the future. Based on the what's going on here and the foreshadowing. So look into those and let me know what you think, if that's plausible or not, if you think that's true or not. So that is very interesting. Here we have Barbarian, a little bit of Barbarian. We know that the fallen Barbarian that we're going to be fighting is the Barbarian's grandfather. We have the Monk, in which there is a fallen monk as well in Dice Throne Adventures. And then we have the Paladin. Now, in the bottom right, you will see here, I will have a fallen Paladin someday. This would mean to me that, as of right now, the Mad King does not have a fallen Paladin, which would mean that do not look forward or do not be thinking that we will be confronting a fallen paladin, because the Mad King is admitting that he doesn't have one, that the knights are devout, holy warriors, very loyal. It says that they're also misguided, but that they're extremely loyal and they will not become fallen. So don't expect that to happen. Then we have the good old Pyromancers here. He was a little upset that Visera left a Pyromancer in, because she's going to most likely decimate his Colosseum. Now, why would you have a Colosseum? Possibly for a grand championship, where you have all the people around his kingdom see the grand championship and see him, claim that he's going to win the grand championship again. Is this something else that's going to happen in the future? Possibly. We'll see what happens. I may be coming off on a stretch there, but we may see something in the far future of some sort of Colosseum with the miniatures, with Dice Throne Adventures itself. Who knows? But I just find it interesting that they talk about a grand championship and a Colosseum. Shadow Thief. I can't determine whether or not if he has a fallen Shadow Thief. The reason why is because the Mad King says, "Someday, Visera, the thief will belong to me." Meaning, I don't know if he's referencing this specific Shadow Thief or just Shadow Thief in general. And if it's in general, then I wouldn't expect to see a fallen Shadow Thief, since he does not have one that belongs to him either. And then obviously we have Season 2 right there. We have all the Season 2 characters, and obviously there's a big old foreshadow with that as well. And lastly here, which I think is awesome. I think this is just such a cool page. Fantastic job of, you most likely have 3 fallen behind the Mad King right there. However, we don't know who those are. That is not the fallen gunslinger. That doesn't look like the fallen barbarian. Doesn't look like the fallen monk. Obviously, because the monk doesn't have any hair to start with. So, I'd be interested to know what these fallen are, if they are fallen, or if they something greater than a fallen. I'd be very interested to see that. Very exciting, very cool. So it could be a fallen moon elf some way to the right there on the left. No idea. And in the middle, some sort of big old axe right there, that's for sure. So let me know what you think down below. If you think those are, accurate assumptions of what, or guesses of what could happen. Let me know if you have any other lore that you think that may be talkable about, that has some backing behind it, and why you believe that to be so. Other than that, I appreciate you listening and watching in. Stay tuned for Friday, where we will have the Huntress versus the Samurai. We're doing it one more close up, or where it's just mainly on the dice tray itself. And then for the following time, we're going to try to switch up the camera view again. I know we've had a couple of people say they enjoyed seeing the entire player boards themselves. So we'll probably do something like that, do that again, or something close to that. So other than, have a good night, and sorry it took so long, but here you go. Thank you. Bye.